One of the things I love about this group is the positivity. All of you are very, very positive women, and I know that's going to come out in this panel. So, without further ado, I'm Christina, the producer and host of Women's Health, Wealth, and Happiness Interviews to Inspire. I want to welcome you to this episode of Inspiring Women with Ruth, Amy, and Kim. Hello, ladies.
Hello, aloha.
Hi. Yeah, so it's so lovely to be here connecting with all of these beautiful, purpose-driven women. I am a career clarity coach and I support heart-led, spiritually centered women on getting clear on what their soul-aligned career path is to fulfilling their potential, how they can shine and radiate as their authentic self, and how they can make the impact and the income they truly desire and really deserve. I am coming from Ontario, Canada. I'll actually be in Asia, so I'll be traveling. I've booked a one-way ticket, so I'm very excited.
I am Amy Noopson. I own New Fire Collective, and I help people in business, mainly women, who are trying to grow their business that are service based, but yet have a really hard time holding boundaries, saying no, really following their gut and their emotion and like really what they want instead of listening to others or what they should do. And I do that with clarity, courage, and confidence. So the clarity of being who they are, authentically offering what they want to offer, and the courage to take small little actions that impact their lives, and the confidence to be them in the room, no matter who they're talking to. And so I love empowering women to stand up for what they believe in their own business and really show up and stop saying yes to the things they don't. I am Amy Noopson. I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I love the idea, Ruth, that you bought a one-way ticket. I'm so jealous.
One of my favorite ways to travel.
I love that. And Amy, I'm from Minnesota originally. So I bought a one-way ticket to Maui, Hawaii 7 years ago and didn't go back. So yeah, I moved here. That's kind of one of my stories. I'm Kim Jalid. I own a business called Finding Your Fiji. I am an intuitive life coach who helps women, business owners, and entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and moms help create an environment within their home space that energetically supports them and the things that they want to attract into their life. And I also help a lot with decision making. So I have found that a lot of women tend to second guess themselves or question their intuition. And so I am all about helping hone those skills of intuition, connecting intuitively with their angels and guides to help live a life that is more in harmony in both their head, their heart, and in their home space as well. I'm a Feng Shui expert and a psychic and use those skills to help women uplevel their lives.
So you can see what a positive, amazing group full of energy this is. I'm so excited. So let's go ahead and start with questions. Ruth, would you like to ask the ladies some questions?
I want to say when I saw the lineup of brain is just exploding with excitement, and I was really excited to be here today and to pick your brains. Amy, I see that you love storytelling and you're a coach in that, and storytelling is one of my favorite things to experience and one of my passions. And I'd love to hear what is one of your favorite stories to tell and why?
Storytelling is something I thought I was awful at. Like when I was young, I could tell the same story my sister could, and everybody laughed. And like, even when she was complaining in the room, everybody's like, "Oh, isn't she funny?" And everybody like, "Stop talking, Amy." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I really didn't think I had the ability to tell a really good story. And it was about 6 years ago. I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. How can I talk to people in an authentic way, but not have to shove information down them? Like, that's how sometimes as a marketer, that's how I feel like I'm doing. So I've been 20 years in marketing. And I'm like, I want to share stories. So I started learning it and I started actually helping this guy out. And I was like, you know what? I can do your course better. Let's do it a little bit better. Let's work together on this. And eventually I started leading his stuff. And he's like, you're better at this than I am. And what I love doing is here, especially women around the world, it's international stories. It doesn't matter where you are. There's no boundaries to stories. That's what I love about it. And one of my, I guess I could say, superpowers is listening to somebody's story, and then I step into their shoes and I retell it to them. And usually they're like, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" I'm like, that's your story. It's not mine.
Mm,
And what I
that.
love about story is it needs to inspire us first, and then it can inspire others. And I can give you an example. It tells you a lot about myself. Is when I was little, I grew up on a small dairy farm in Wisconsin. And my dad was like, "Hey, Amy, go get a hammer." I'm like, "I got this. I can get a hammer." Ran into the shed, got him a hammer, said, "Here you go, Dad." And he's like, "I wanted a wrench." I'm like, "You said hammer." I remember that then going, just being frustrated. I'm like, what? So the next time he had a project, and I was like, "Okay." He goes, "Amy, go get me a hammer." I'm like, "What are you working on?" "Okay, I got this." Ran into the garage, grabbed every single tool I thought he might need on that project, and said, "Which one do you need, Dad?" You see, my dad was not, he's not from America. He's from Norway. So language was always a little bit mixed up for him. Like he'd say one thing, he meant another. I was like, great. So there was such language barriers in my home that I had to learn how to anticipate what he needed, not what he said. And I used that throughout my entire career as a marketer and as a coach to say, I don't think you need a hammer. I think you need something else. What is it? Let's figure that out. Because I know what you're saying. There's something more to it. That's what I love that story is I can tell you a whole bunch about myself in a 5-minute story. But otherwise I'd have to try to convince you like I'm really good at what I do. And this is just trust me. Like, that. And it's the truth. I mean, I had language barriers and communication breakdowns my entire childhood. I had to figure out a different solution. And it actually made me an amazing communicator, strangely. So that's storytelling and the power of it and what I love to do. So thank you for asking about stories.
Thank you for sharing. I'm getting goosebumps as I hear your story, and just my heart feels so filled with your connection with your dad and how that feeds back into your passion today.
And people remember it. They're like, and that's what I think is more important than anything. I could tell you a bunch of statistics and facts and to-dos, and you'll forget it in an hour, possibly. But the stories stay, and they also build trust really fast.
And that's what we remember about our best teachers, are those kind of moments, those stories that are like, wow, you might not remember everything you did in calculus, but you remember something the teacher told you about themselves.
Yes, very much. How about you, Kim? Do you do stories? Do you involve that with
I
others?
do. There's a lot of stories that I find really connect with where people are at. The one that I love to share the most is when I moved to Maui and the sign that I got to move to Maui, because taking that risk of, I lived in Minnesota all my life, other than doing a study abroad in Ireland, but I lived there all my life. I had a home, my boys were there, my whole family was there, and I just kept getting signs about moving to Maui. I knew I was meant to move from Minnesota because the energy there was just feeling very stuck for me, very stagnant. And so I just kept getting this nudge to move. And then when Maui came in, I was like, oh boy, this is a big deal. Moving to an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean is a little bit more than, moving to the next town over or even another state on mainland. It was a big deal. So I asked my guides for a sign. I said, I need a really, really clear sign that this is actually what you want me to do, and something that I cannot mistaken for anything else. And the very next day I got it. I got a package in the mail. I was doing a Secret Santa sister exchange. So I was getting gifts from people that I didn't know, friends of friends. And sometimes they would write a little note in there saying who they were, but most of the time they didn't. And I could just tell from the postmark where it was from. And this happened to come from someone else in Minnesota. And I get the package and I open it up and I, of course, dig for the gifts and see what was in there. I don't even remember now what the gifts were. But then I was looking, they had sort of cushioned the package with a couple of these little small, like jewelry sized handle bags. So they kind of just put those on the top. And the one that I pulled out from the very top was a turquoise blue, which I love that color. It reminds me of the ocean. And it said Maui Divers Jewelry on it. And I was like, well, I cannot mistake that. That says Maui on it. That is my sign. And from then on, it was really easy because I just leaned in and I just started taking action. I'm like, okay, I'm moving to Maui. One of my friends asked me, what's your plan B? I said, I don't have one. I'm moving to Maui. Right? And I still have that bag because it's a reminder that we're not in this alone. We always have help. We always have guidance, whether you believe in angels or your guides or your loved ones that are there helping you, we always have help. So we're not alone in this. And we get to ask for confirmation. We get to ask for, signs that we're on the right path.
How about Ruth? How about you? Since we all kind of told our story.
Yeah, I love stories, hearing stories and sharing them. And I think for me, continue to evolve as I evolve. And it really depends on who I'm speaking with. That kind of inspiration naturally speaks for itself, kind of as Kim was sharing, like that guidance and that support is always there. And actually, one of my favorite stories is the one where I pack up everything. I travel to India and I find Vipassana, which is one of the most transformative experiences of my life, a 10-day silent retreat. But Kim, as you're sharing your story, I'm inspired to share a new one that's coming up for me. I planted a seed to travel for 3 months around Asia. And I was like, oh yeah, visualizing and just thinking about it. And then I just let it go. I moved on to other, visualization exercises. And then a few weeks ago, I do daily card readings just to set the tone for my day. And within a week's time, I pulled 3 times the traveling card. And I was like, okay, if this is not a sign, I don't know what is. It's gonna like smack me in the head. And then a few days after getting those readings, my mom leaves a voice memo on my messenger and she's like, I'm going to Asia for 3 months. Do you want to come? And it's my gift.
Oh my gosh, so many chills, right? Confirming goosebumps.
Yes. And the thing that was really like meaningful for me, because I've been doing a lot of healing and recognizing my ancestral line, the power in the lineage. And my mom grew up in Cambodia. She was there during the war and had this like really heroic experience of breaking up with her family, finding them later in different countries and in different ways. And just the opportunity to go to her home village and like live through her stories, her courage, her fiery passion is like such a gift. So I'm really excited.
Oh my
I'm so
gosh, that's
excited for
amazing.
you.
Thank you.
I know that feeling because I went to Norway to get reconnected with my family roots and see what my grandma's stories were all about. And I love it. I kind of wish I could move back there. I'm like, why did you leave? I felt more connected and actually at home in Norway than I ever did here. And it doesn't make any logical sense, but I have such a strong connection to Europe and Norway, especially. But I mean, other than the stories and the people around me.
I'll share one too. With that in mind, when I go back to the house that my mother grew up in the Philippines, there is one room that I love the energy in that room. And Kim, we talked about windows. I open the windows, I let that breeze come in. These chairs that I love to sit in, they're not comfortable at all. But I love them. They're like leaned back at this 45-degree angle and it's flat. It's not tilted, it's flat. But my grandmother had those made and the table made, and she was gone 10 years about before I was born. But there is something when I am in that room that I feel connected to her, that in her house, and I'm like, I'm home, Grandma, Lola,
Oh.
actually. But there's something that I cannot describe in the whole house. That's where I want to sit, in those chairs and in that room. And it's like,
I love that. Yeah, I do feel like energy spaces retain energy, right? Things do, objects do as well, retain that energy. And so we feel that, we get in tune to that, we get drawn to that, and places as well.
Well, I also love that all of us love to travel. So that's really awesome too. I'm like, yay.
Ruth, did you have another question?
I do. I have one that was specifically inspired by just like holding Kim and perusing her stuff. I would love to know, the spiritual world, I feel like, is so personal and so exciting because sometimes isn't like a physical, obvious thing. And so I'd love to hear more about, what do you experience when you're doing your angel readings and connecting with guides?
When I'm on actual vacation or I'm not doing readings for a little while, I really miss it because I get as much out of the reading as the people do that I'm reading for. To me, it's the easiest thing that I do because I just get out of the way and I'm just relaying messages. So for me, when I'm doing a reading, I hear. So I'll hear words, I'll hear things. I do use cards because I like the visual. I'm a very visual person. So when I'm looking at cards, something will jump out at me, something will be shown to me within the card. And then I also get pictures in my mind that they send me messages through the pictures as well. And for me, when I'm doing the readings, it's really just like letting everything come out. So I tend to talk really fast when I'm doing readings because they have so much to share and I'm just getting like bombarded with information and things that are coming up in answer to the person's question or the area of their life that they're wanting information from. But the thing I think that is most touching for me is when loved ones come through. And sometimes this happens because they ask about a loved one or a message from a loved one. Sometimes it just comes in unbidden. And for me, what happens, I feel the love from the other side. I feel the love from that person. And it literally brings me to tears nearly every single time because it's such a strong sensation. It's really almost palpable, but I can't put it into words. It's just like you just feel enveloped in this space of love and tenderness and kindness and yeah, it's just magical to feel that relaying messages, for someone and someone that from the other side, like I'd like to say, is wanting to connect with them or communicate with them. And it's just like, it's so lovely. I love it.
I can really feel your passion for what you do.
I feel blessed every day to be able to do this work because it doesn't feel like work.
Are you able to turn it on and off as easily as you like?
Yeah, so a lot of times people, when they meet me and find out that I'm an intuitive or a psychic, they are like, "Oh, what do you see about me?" Or "What do you see?" And I don't have it switched on all the time. Sometimes when I'm talking with someone, I'll get an intuitive hit. And that's usually because they're open and potentially are needing that information and their guides haven't been able to get it through to them. And I will sometimes relay that. I'll give a kind of a real simple example of this. I was on a flight and I got sort of stuck in the back galley because they, had carts. I'd gone to the restroom and they had carts in the way. And so there was a flight attendant back there and we were just chatting and talking with her. And she was saying that she was based out of Portland. We happened to be flying to Seattle and she was based out of Portland, but she had, she lived in Portland, but she was based out of Seattle. So she literally had to drive up from Portland every day when she would go to work. And so she's been wanting to get this shifted. And just as I was talking to her, I was like, oh, I feel like it's going to be like maybe 3 months. And she's like, "Oh, do you work for the airline?" And I said, "No, I don't actually. But I'm very intuitive and I'm just getting this sense that there's going to be an opening. Something's going to open up. I even get chills as I share it again, that something's going to open up for you in about 3 months." And then later she came back up to me in the flight, found where I was sitting and came up to me and she said, "Thank you so much, for sharing that because it just gave me so much hope." And it gave me so much lightness. So sometimes they come, thoughts and ideas or guidance will come in like that where I haven't asked for it. But for the most part, if I'm just like day to day talking to people, I have it shut off because you can't be open all the time. It would be, it would just be too much. And that's what used to happen to me when I was little. I didn't know about filters. I didn't know how to kind of protect my energy and it was exhausting. And it was really like I could be around people for periods of time. And then I was like, I just need to hole up in my room. Like, just leave me alone, kind of thing. But as you get older, you do learn more about energy. I've learned about how to protect it and to keep myself from, having people come into my room in the middle of the night like they used to when I was little. Oh,
That's so incredible. Amy, do you have questions you would like to ask?
I would like to ask more about to either one of them, whoever you want to answer it. I love both of you all of you to answer. When you travel, what's the one thing that surprises you that you continuously learn about yourself?
That's a deep question. I love it. I'm letting that soak and marinate.
I have something real quick about that. And it's more about how things go when I'm traveling. So, what I've learned is that setting really clear intentions about how you want things to go, in particular, the plane itself and where I'm sitting and who's surrounding me. I'm super intentional now about that. And I catch myself if I don't do it, I definitely experience things that are not so pleasant, right? But just as an example, I will set the intention. I always get an aisle seat because I drink a lot of water. I'm up and down, going to the bathroom a lot. So I have an aisle seat, and I always set the intention that I have an empty seat next to me, or that I have someone small that smells good, which sounds funny, but when you've experienced the contrast, the clarity is I want someone, that and also potentially someone that's very kind, considerate, all of those kind of things, and that the people around me, surrounding me, are kind, quiet, and considerate as well. So that is just something I've learned, that you can literally set that intention. And it happened to me just on a flight recently. I was in my seat. Actually, two ladies came and sat next to me, super nice. I was chatting with them. And then they discovered when another girl came down that they were in the wrong seats. So they actually were supposed to be in the row ahead of us. And she and I had an empty seat between us when we took off. So I did manifest like both things.
That's so cool, Kim. I'm taking notes for my next trip.
Definitely. Yeah. I set really clear intentions about what you want and how you want that to go.
That's awesome. I never even considered that. That's a fantastic idea.
I used to, when I was single, set the intention that there'd be a, handsome single man next to me. And the one time I manifest one on each side, I'm like, oh my gosh. So you could do that too.
Ask and you shall receive.
That's right.
I would say my spirit of adventure. And I get to see so many different versions of myself based off of different environments. And it's like meeting new friends. And I really resonate with Kim. Personally, I like to be on my own and I can feel a lot of energy. I would consider myself a homebody. And then when I book one-way tickets and pack up all my things, I don't have a home. And it's so delightful to see this hermit just really like blooming into the discovery and also just really going with the flow, trusting the guidance of the universe, the right people, the right places, the right situations always unfold. I was in India and I happened to be traveling at nighttime in smaller places, and there were two situations which were kind of actually dangerous, and I was traveling alone, which is not recommended in India at nighttime. And there were situations where I felt very unsafe. My ability to integrate and be in that moment and really see it as like this deep understanding of humanity and offer that compassion to people who may have harmed or like scared me was something that I really took away. I was like, wow, like I have such a courageous heart that I want to love and understand everyone. And I think that's what really drives me to see new countries, experience new cultures and new foods is just like that pure humanity.
And I agree with you, Ruth. That's why I love to travel. People ask me why. I've traveled all over the United States and I'm starting to conquer Europe. And I love it because I get to understand people. I get to learn and experience and the empathy I start to understand. Like I spent a long time in Portugal and we couldn't speak Portuguese. So we were we're like, oh, we don't know, like, and it was such an interesting experience to not know what anybody was saying around us. And there was French, German, all these. I'm like, we know none of these languages, but I loved it because then there was a lot of sense of quiet too. Because then I was really in my own head and my own experience because the noise around me wasn't deafening. But it also gave me an idea what it'd be like when people come here and they can't speak English. I'm like, oh, okay, there is a challenge here. And still there's kindness everywhere, no matter if there's a language barrier or not. My husband spilled his food all over the ground and some lady just handed him a bag and gave him a smile and walked away, like so he can pick up the fruit and stuff that he dropped, like it's like I was like, why were you just carrying it? But okay. I think that's the beauty. Instead of also, I don't want somebody to tell me that something is unsafe. I want to experience it. I want to decipher for myself or say, like, is it? Because there's beauty everywhere. And that's why I love to travel.
The thing, and it's funny, it's one of those surprises me every time is everything your entire life, anywhere you go, whether like when I go to the Philippines for 3 weeks at a time or wherever I go, I have everything I need with me. That you're able to compact your life into a bag or a couple bags, and you're like, why do I have everything else that I have?
Yeah.
I can live with my shampoo, my razor, my soap, and clean underwear.
And socks.
Yes.
Yep.
Because then I get back and I'm like, oh, I've got all these things again, but that's the part that I'm like, wow. I have a cousin, when she went back to the Philippines, she's from there originally, she packed 4 of the big suitcases and she saw me, she's like, you have a shoulder bag and a carry-on? I'm like, that's all I need. If I can't do that, I don't know. Yeah. How about you ladies when it comes to traveling? Are you big packers, little packers?
Little packers. Like I learned that lesson even with like little packers with the carry-on when you go to like Scotland or England, you get all the cobblestone, you're like, this is painful, even with the little carry-on. Like how heavy, like how much jarring it is to your body. So I'm like, I rather prefer what I try to pack whatever I can carry on my back. Yeah.
I'm kind of a big packer. I can usually do one big suitcase and a carry-on, depending on how long I'm going to be gone. But usually, from here, if I'm going to mainland, I'm going to be there a while. Like be getting a one-way ticket to Washington soon. So it's that needing and wanting to have the convenience, and also a lot of times I'm traversing between weather patterns. So that can also be difficult. Like this last trip I did, Washington State, Minnesota, which September, October, you never know what the weather's going to be like in Minnesota. It could be, and it was like 80 degrees and then it was like 32, like at the very end of the trip. So, and then I was going to Palm Springs after that. And so there was a lot of that. But one of the things that I think about too with packing and to your point, Christina, like the idea that we don't need all this stuff that we have like around us. And even to do our work, like I work wherever I'm going, I'm doing work. And pretty much everything is on my computer that, like, if I had to print something, I could print it, and I don't necessarily need to bring all these paper, kind of stuff with me. The thing that I run into is that there are some books that I like to refer to, and not having those with me. I have I Ching that I do some divination with the I Ching as well. It's an ancient Chinese divination tool, and you need the book to be able to do, sort of that divination stuff. So that's kind of interesting. And always carrying my cards with me. So I always have angel cards with me as well. And those are usually in my carry-on because they're heavy, right?
I feel the both of you. I usually go with a backpack, so it is whatever I bring is what I'm going to be carrying with me. And also, as I think about this trip, I'm like, do I want to bring my cards, my crystals? Like, I love having them, so I can also relate, Kim, as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something about the energy of having that with you as well. Wherever you're landing, because I stayed in a lot of different places, is having those things there energetically, I feel like raise the vibration of the space as well.
And I do think every place I go, I pack less and less and less
Mm.
because I learned that I'm
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, I didn't need that. Um,
Right. Yeah, you do learn as you go.
yeah, I mean, I spent 3 months in Europe and I literally had between the two of us 2 backpacks and a roll cart for 3 months with our all of our equipment and everything in it, and it was fine. And two extreme seasons, from wet cold
Nice.
to summer, like, um, but it was wonderful. I mean, and when you buy what you need, I mean, I have to say, finding deodorant in Portugal was a challenge.
Yeah, that's well, and that is one of the things for me is because I use all natural products. My deodorant and my face stuff and the things that I put on my body are really important to me. So that is also why I tend to bring, kind of more things because I don't want to run out of those things.
Yeah.
Amy, did you have any other questions?
So one of the questions I do have, since you're kind of both all coaches in the room too, how do you deal with the time zone changes when you travel? Because that was a challenge for me.
I tend to just on a practical level, I change my scheduling system to the time zone that I'm in. So that because I here in Maui, my appointments start at 7:30 a.m. And if I wouldn't change that, it would be really, then I wouldn't have appointments until later in the day when I'm in Minnesota, for example. So I change it on my scheduling system and then I also change it on my Google Calendar. It is a challenge, especially when you're going from multiple time zones, and like Hawaii doesn't our time doesn't ever change. We don't do daylight savings, and so that's already a challenge. When it happens, I'm like, okay, these regular meetings need to switch to this other, to a different time now because my time hasn't changed, but theirs has. So just, yeah, on a practical level, I handle it that way, and always blocking time when the day I'm traveling and maybe even the day after, just so I'm not having somebody schedule in something when I'm not really settled where I'm going.
I'm really taking notes. This is really the first time I'll be traveling and working and coaching. And so when I said yes, there were all of these concerns, time zone, and not knowing where we're going to be, what travel days, all of this. And it got kind of intense. I was like, holy, like I really need to be clear with what it is that I truly desire so that I can call it in and create it. Now I'm just like really stepping into this trust and trusting that when I'm traveling, when I'm not near my laptop, that things will work out exactly the way they need to. And when I have access in my own space, then those are the times I'll have my call. And that's really like building a totally new muscle for me. It's gonna be basically like night and day when I go to Asia. So it's gonna be very interesting. I'd love
Yeah.
to hear
Yeah.
any tips or things that have worked for you, Christina and Amy.
Yeah, well, with the 12-hour time difference in the Philippines, it's usually 12, or when the time changes 13. It's funny because I usually it's that 7 to 8 o'clock hour, either my morning or the evening that I know I can catch somebody because that's like I could be in the zone, I could be on, and that's about it. Before
Mhm.
7 a.m. my time, whichever. Mm-mm. I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, how about 7 a.m. your time? And I'll do 7 p.m. my time. Because I know I'll definitely be on by then without that worry. But and it's interesting. I mean, you're going to be gone for such a long time. For me, I also cram everything before and after my trip. If I can get away with not having to do too much while I'm gone, I will. So if I'm gone for 10 days in a completely different time zone, I'm like, okay, if we can pause this until I get back so that I can fully be where I am and re-energize myself. Because I find for me that time of turning off when I'm someplace else, not only am I absorbing the culture and everything else, but my mind, I'm sure you ladies are like this too. It's just like, like the pistons and in the old cars, they're just going.
We did a 2 month like driving trip last year, and one thing that helped me is really focusing on doing work basically Tuesday, Wednesday were my real strong work days. That's when I met with my groups. And so I always knew that I had to be somewhere solid Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And then the rest of the time I could kind of fudge around or see where things were. And there was one time I did a summit on a weekend, and so I knew in advance, like, okay, that weekend we need to be somewhere. And we ended up just in a hotel in New Mexico for that time period. And it worked out. But I think it helps to just kind of pile things into a couple days even, so that okay, Tuesdays and Wednesdays or whatever those days are for you, that you can focus on being somewhere that you are able to work those days. And that way you can kind of formulate your trip around that as well, and knowing that, okay, these are the days I need to work. You can let your mom know that expectation, like, these are going to be days that I'm going to be meeting with clients and I'm going to need to be somewhere there's internet.
And the other thing I would say is train your clients before. That's what I did. Start getting them on that schedule before you leave. And then it really helps. Because one of the things I've learned, because I'm trying to move to Europe. So I only meet with when I meet with clients are only in the morning, because then it's early afternoon there. So I already am training my clients what times I want to communicate with them no matter where I go or in Europe, right? And it really did help letting them know, like, no, these are the time slots. And I didn't do Mondays and Fridays. So then I had those 3 days in the middle. And then I found co-working spaces because that was so much easier and worth every penny
Right.
invested in those spaces. They had comfortable chairs, they had monitors. It was fantastic. And they have like sometimes booths where you can talk. I mean, I would highly recommend that, because then it's kind of like you're stepping away from the vacation and working, and then you get dedicated really good time.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the vacation. So that really helped me separate that.
And double checking the internet.
Yeah, but most countries I think have better internet than we have in the US. So I've traveled in the US where I've had no internet. Everywhere I've traveled and everywhere else, fantastic. Never had a problem. It happens here too.
Yeah, I'm really inspired by each of your stories and how you just navigate the flow and continuing with what it is that you're doing while traveling.
Yeah, because I hear so many people want to do it and they're like, I can't do it because of this or that. Or I'm like, well, go try it. Go for a couple weeks and then go. That's how I did it. I went for a couple weeks, then I went for 6 weeks, then I went for 2 months, then I went for 3 months. I'm like, hey, wait, this is doable. Stop telling myself excuses. So that's what I help other people do. And it sounds like you guys do the same thing. Do what you love. Life's too short.
Kim, do you have questions that you would like to ask?
I do. Since we all kind of have this coach commonality here, one of the things that I'm curious about is, what is one thing that you find yourself repeating often to people that really makes a difference in their mindset, like kind of shifting something in their mind. Because I find that mindset is half the battle, more than half the battle a lot of times, right? You know, because we all come from different perspectives, all come from different backgrounds and things like that, and the way we grew up and things like that. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that. Something that you often, like your sage advice, I guess, maybe.
Well, I feel like there's so much, like, just like I love this topic and I love diving into it. So, as a career clarity coach, I see many women focus on what the right action is, what career do I want to be in, and sort of the physical outer actions. And what I'm continually reminding and inviting them back to is the inner reality and cultivating all of those beautiful things that we already have within us, that peace, the abundance, the love. And that's the first starting place, that foundation where everything manifests so much easier. And so we work on that inner journey and that inner home. And then we flow from there. And another one also is this like connection to everything. You know, we're like all one, and really finding these moments to pause and soak up that truth in one's own direct experience is so transformative, because that's where that surrender and that trust comes in, that we're always taken care of, that we're always working with each other for our highest good. And so it's really like, from that space, let go and have fun and just create whatever it is that you want to experience in this life. And it's such a powerful light that gets switched on from this place. And it's like so juicy, so beautiful.
Oh, I love that. I
I
love
feel like you
that.
just like articulated mine in a beautiful way where I'm like way more direct. I'm like, but it's so pretty how you said that. It's so truthful. But mine is more of like, I work a lot in culture. And it's the culture that women are believed that they are the expectation in culture. Like, I can't say no because, or I have to do everything right and perfect because, like, it's these statements we tell ourselves. I do a lot of mindset coaching with my clients because we only can go as far as our ceiling is allowed, and we put the ceiling there. And I have to discover, where did that ceiling come from? And sometimes it's the community we come from, the background we come from. Sometimes it's our parents. Sometimes it's ourselves. Sometimes it's we worked at a corporation for way too long and now we have these ideals. And I have to pull back all the layers to find out, like, okay, this is not your belief. This is somebody else's. And a lot of it starts with, especially I'm in the Midwest, and Kim probably knows this, the Midwest nice sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Minnesota
so
nice
much.
is a thing.
It's awful. And I'm like, we're going to deprogram that. How about that? You know, it's like, we can be kind, but nice is not good. So it's that element, but it's also the idea of like, I can say no, and it shouldn't hurt me to say no. And you said that, Ruth, in a very beautiful way. Like, I'm like, that is so right. But it's, but for me, it's giving them the power to change and seeing it outside of themselves sometimes. Like, that's what's holding them back. It's not even themselves, it's them believing the outside voices and ideas and beliefs and going, you can accept it or reject it. That is your power. And that's what I love seeing when they start to go, wait a minute. Like, I took a mental health day on Monday. I needed it. And I'm like, I shut my phone off. I did everything. I'm like, done. I needed this day. Like, and I felt fantastic doing it. So it's the idea of being selfish, because we deserve to be selfish. So that's my tip.
I love it. I love it. How about you, Christina?
You know, it's interesting. I go back to when I taught ballroom for 20 years, and then I even just talking to people now, the biggest thing, and I think, is patience and listening. And it's not only what you're telling people, but it's also for yourself sometimes, the patience of, we're going to get through this. It's not going to come overnight. It's baby steps. That's how we can get through this. Be patient and listen. Not only listen to what other people are telling you, but listen to yourself. Just like you're saying, that mental health day. Sometimes, you know what? Before I chop your head off, take a step back. I need to take a deep breath for myself right now so I can come back and be the person I need to be for other people. That even balance, because I need to listen to you and you need to listen to me. We're in this together.
I imagine dancing really taught you how to lead and follow both as well. And I think people think when you're self-employed, you have to always lead. It's like, no, sometimes you follow, sometimes you give, sometimes you change, sometimes you stand up, sometimes you let other people's voices be heard.
Yeah, that's the yin and the yang, right?
It's a beautiful dance that we sometimes forget. We're always thinking that we have to be the leader. And
right.
I think you should come up with some great stories about dances and
it's a partnership
and topics and how you can flow through dancing.
One of the things when you're teaching women, and it's funny to let go, because as the female part, following is not the easiest thing. I mean, wow, you talk about working through the trust, and no, you can't tell them what to do. Trust that it's going to happen. It's really interesting because from that perspective, they have to learn to trust me first as the coach, that I'm going to get their partner to do what needs to be done, and they are going to be happy after this.
Yeah. Yeah, that following is hard for us as women business owners, and part of the challenge just in general in public is that women are not embracing their feminine because they're so in the masculine in their work and what they do, and it's just a whole different thing than it was, whatever, 50 years ago. That's a really key thing that I always have to remind myself of, and particularly when I'm with my partner, is that I get to let him be the masculine and let him, I can come up with the idea and then he can implement it.
Well, and I think you brought up a good point, Kim, too, is the idea of being feminine is wrong in business. Like there is a big cliche about that. And one of the people she just left corporate, and she was talking to me. She's like, she goes, I can't stop crying. And then she's been really upset. And I talked to her and I go, you woke up. It's your emotions are coming out. You woke up from being in corporate and now you're trying to figure out who you are, where you belong, what you want to do. And it's all rushing out. That's all your emotions are doing is just going through. And she goes, I never thought of it that way. I always thought it was embarrassing that I would start crying. I'm like, don't be embarrassed to cry. They're embarrassed. That's on them. Who cares?
Yeah, emotions are information. It's they're guidance for us too. And when we feel something really deeply, it's a message for us. We have to pay attention to that.
I think if we could give the world any messages, that, I mean, just start feeling again. The best way to lead a company is heart and head. Like you need both. You can't do one or the other. If you do one or the other, is a lacking. There's an imbalance. It needs both.
What a beautiful gift to offer people, right? That balancing with the heart and the head.
Yeah, I had one client that I asked her about her finances, and she's like, Amy, I don't talk about my finances. I'm like, okay, why not? I'm a very positive person. And I'm like, can you explain that? Like it was like that was a thought that I think was taught to her. Like the idea that money was something that you don't talk about, you don't explore, you don't. And I'm like, that is an energy to money that's a really damaging, idea. So how do we change this? And so now when she makes a decision, it was all emotional, and she was having a very toxic team because it was all emotion. And now we had to blend the two, and she has this amazing team. Her business is thriving. And it was an interesting slight shift, but without somebody ever telling you, like, wait a minute, you can have both these worlds. Go ahead and live them both. Use them. They're there. They're tools, right? That's the beauty. And I couldn't be prouder. She's doing an amazing job.
Well, kudos to you, coach.
Yeah. It is always nice when things go right, right? You're like,
Yes. Yeah, it's fun to cheer the clients on for sure. See their
yeah.
successes.
It is the most rewarding part of being a coach is seeing their successes, I think, for me.
I think
Christina.
for me it's like the physical, the things that show up for them physically. So just as an example, I work with a lot of female chiropractors for some reason and realtors and therapists for some reason are drawn to me. I think it's people that are work with people when they're in an emotional state. So chiropractors, it's usually a health thing. Therapists, it's, stuff that's going on in their mind. Realtors, it's like physical stuff. Like it's a big thing to buy or sell a home. And so I work with a lot of female chiropractors, but I worked with a gal last spring that's I've been working with her for many, many years. Whenever she does a remodel in her space, she always contacts me because she wants to set it up right. She wants to set it up for success. And so we had done that. She was expanding again because it's always an expansion for her. She just keeps growing, right? And so there was an expansion for her, and I made some recommendations on things to shift. And she was going to put her office in one spot. And I'm like, no, no, no. We want to put it in this other location so that you can be successful and you can remain in charge of the space. But what I love is she just came back to me recently. I'm going to meet with her in a couple of weeks. Is she's like, "Oh, I've got some updates for you. We've had an amazing year, incredible year, and I have some updates, and I also have some questions." Right? So I think it's so fun to see in the physical, like, just a lot more money flow coming in for them, a lot more connection between the docs and the people that are working there, and just that physically them being able to do what they love and let go of some of the reins of other things, right? So it's sort of the tangible things that show up that just bring more joy to them. I think that's the most rewarding thing for me, is like seeing how the shifts have really changed their lives.
The thing that popped up for me is just those light bulb moments where, things are hazy, there's a lack of clarity, and then everything just falls into place. And my clients step back and they see the big picture revealed and they're like, oh, I get it. And it's just like, yes. And I would also say just this like coming home to themselves in this busy, chaotic world where I know for myself, this constant searching for answers outside, and then just like really returning home into that safety, that love, and that trust is so powerful. It's such a delight to be a part of.
Terrific. Well, I will let you start to take it home.
I think the thing that I want to just bring out is that we're all on a journey here, and wherever you're at is perfect. It's not, nothing's going wrong, you're not in the wrong place, you're not at the wrong time. Everything is going exactly as it's meant to. And you get to just ask, what's next? I'm here now. What's next? And leaning in to what's next for you, opening up to that journey, because we're all, whether we're physically traveling or not, as we like to do, or you are traveling through some experience in your life, it's always a journey to be present in the moment for. So be where you are right now. I guess that's the kind of the last little thing I wanted to share.
I love it when people realize that owning a business is also about personal growth. They go hand in hand. And the more you learn about yourself, the more you learn how to lead, the more you learn how to operate, to communicate, to be with other people, and also to be by yourself when you need to recharge. For business owners, it's so important to grab onto that personal journey as well. And I love that this conversation, all of us kind of recognize that. And I think it's becoming more and more known that when I started business 20 years ago, you were supposed to separate yourself from your business. They do not intermix. Right? That's exactly laugh out loud. Really, it's the most silliest idea I've ever heard. it's really coming back together. And I think that's the biggest journey most business owners find is they have to figure out how to get back together, merge those two identities, and then learn how to protect their hearts and also, but then also lead with their head and their heart. And I love that. And I love this conversation because it sounds like sometimes you feel like you're on your own talking about these things. And it's wonderful to know there's so many of us out there doing the same kind of work with amazing people out there.
Yeah, I'll also echo just this beautiful, juicy, lovely conversation. I feel like I could just continue chatting and hanging out for hours. One thing I would like to leave with is just this. If you feel like you have something really important to share, if you have this gift that's like really burning within you that you want to serve and help others with, I want you to know that the world really, really needs it. They need you and everything that you need in order to realize that and get there, you already have within you. And so I invite people who might be on that journey, who might be confused or really like dancing on that edge of leaping into the unknown, just to like settle into your heart. Take these moments to really settle into your heart and allow that to guide you into the unknown. And it will always take you to the places that you need and desire to go.
Ladies, you are so inspiring. You are so positive. You have so much to offer. And thank you for offering your wisdom today. Ruth, Amy, and Kim, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Christina.
you.
Thank you.
Add a fourth person and do in-person panels because I love the conversations that we're having as women. And one of the things you said, Amy, with the last panel, and I think it was on the panel also, Ruth, with Rachel, she had commented about having this as a safe space where we can just talk and be ourselves. And you're with women who are like, yes, let's just bring it on. Let's talk.
Yeah.
So yes.
Getting chills, Christina. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all for just being my friends because I feel that way with all of you. And I'm just, it's that silly thing when you say I'm in love, but there's that special place where you all hold a place in my heart. And I'm so thankful for all of you.
Oh, thank you.
Subscribe and click the link below to find out about bonus tracks and how to join our community.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Inspiring Women. I'm Christina. Until next time.